As a leader, it is incredibly important for you to become more articulate when you speak. Whether you're the leader of a small company or the CEO of a large organization, being able to get your thoughts across clearly and concisely is the key to your continued success. There are a number of reasons why becoming more articulate is important for leaders. First, it helps you appear more intelligent and credible because you can concisely and precisely talk about complicated topics. Second, it makes you look more confident because you don't hesitate when you speak. You get your message across quickly and clearly. Third, it helps you influence others because when they understand your message and the logic behind it, they'll be more convinced and more likely to take action. If you have ever been exposed to somebody who can speak in an articulate way, you will know the impact it has on others. So in this video, we're going to look at how you can improve your communication to become more articulate and amplify your leadership success. The tips I share will cover how to produce your thoughts in an articulate way and how to produce speech sounds so you sound articulate. The first thing you need to do is to get clear on your core message, because when you have your core message that is clear in your mind, you are able to communicate that message outwardly so other people can receive that message with clarity. Because the essence of communication is to impart knowledge, to share knowledge with another person. If your core message is confused in your mind, then you won't be able to impart that knowledge in a clear way to the other person. And they certainly won't be able to receive that knowledge or to receive your core message in a clear way either. The problem many speakers have is they don't know what their core message is before they start speaking, and this causes them to ramble in an attempt to find their core message and get clarity on their core message while they're speaking. But the only thing this results in is a confused message or a diluted message and the impression that they are inarticulate. So I encourage you to take some extra time before you start speaking to get clear on the core message in your mind. Know what your core message is before you start to communicate it, which might mean that you need to think before you speak. This is what Jordan Peterson recommends to people who want to become more articulate. He says they need to take the time to think and prepare their thoughts before they communicate them outwardly. A lot of people don't do this. They hurry to gain talking space and to share their thoughts with the group. Sometimes this happens because they're really excited and they're in a hurry to share those thoughts. Other times it happens because they're really nervous and this causes them to speak fast. In either case, when you hurry to communicate before your thoughts are clear in your mind, it will undoubtedly result in unclear and hazy communication. And the only consequence of this is that your audience will be confused and you will sound inarticulate. To avoid this, you need to give yourself permission and time to think before you speak. Gather your thoughts while other people are speaking. Think about what your core message is. This loops us back to point 1 that I talked about in this video. Think about how you are going to communicate that core message to people so it is more impactful and can be clearly understood. Take note of successful speakers to see how much time they take to collect their thoughts and to organize their thoughts in their mind before they start to speak. When you discover how long it takes these successful speakers to do it, it should make you feel a lot more comfortable about doing it yourself. The third recommendation I have is to have an extensive vocabulary. This is a bit of a controversial suggestion. Not everyone will agree with me on this. Some people feel that in order to sound articulate, you don't need to use complicated words and therefore you don't need to have an extensive vocabulary. But my opinion on this is a little bit different. I feel that having an extensive vocabulary will help you have a wide range of words in your mental dictionary to choose from so you can recall the precise words that best explain what you want to say in that moment. It's about recalling and using the most accurate and descriptive words so you can articulate your thoughts in the best way possible. Think about it. If you have a limited vocabulary, when you try to explain something, you will be using and reusing the same words over and over again. This is going to dilute your message. It's going to make your communication have a lot less impact, and it will make you sound inarticulate. Expanding your vocabulary is in your best interest if you want to sound more articulate as a leader, and allowing yourself the time to think before you speak, like we talked about in the last point, will give you the time to recall the words and the vocabulary that you need in that moment. What is the best way to build an extensive vocabulary? Well, I recommend that you read. Reading fills your mind with new words, new vocabulary that you want to add to your mental dictionary. Then, when you have identified the words, you need to record them. Otherwise, that new vocabulary will disappear from your short-term memory. If you want advice on how to read and how to record vocabulary, then I recommend you watch this video up here. On top of expanding your vocabulary, you want to have a set of go-to phrases in your communication. These are phrases that will help you express your ideas with clarity and link your ideas together so they flow seamlessly. This is one of the key ingredients that articulate speakers use to keep people gripped on what they're saying and to keep listening. They use phrases like, "It's worth noting," when they want to introduce a new thought, or "I'd like to offer that," when they have a different perspective. These are just a couple of phrases that articulate speakers use to help them sound more articulate. One thing you'll notice about people who sound articulate when they speak is they do have a set of go-to phrases that they use regularly throughout their communication. Unlike vocabulary, where you don't want to repeat and reuse the same words all of the time, phrases are a little bit different. When you want to become an articulate speaker and become known as an articulate speaker, having a set of go-to phrases will be really helpful because it will become part of your brand. People will remember that you use those phrases that make you sound really, really articulate. I recommend you start noting down and recording go-to phrases that you hear from speakers you admire. Remember what they are and try to incorporate them in your communication too. You've probably noticed that writing has been mentioned a couple of times in this video to help you expand your vocabulary and to learn go-to phrases. But on top of those two reasons, writing is also helpful for you to get clarity on your thoughts. Dan Coe says, "If you don't have ideas, read. If you do have ideas but you can't articulate them, write." Why is writing so helpful in becoming more articulate? Well, it helps you to identify thoughts in your mind so you don't tangle them. It helps you to separate those thoughts so you can communicate them independently. It helps you to know how you are going to communicate those thoughts so you can avoid redundant or inaccurate vocabulary or phrases. And it helps you to know what thoughts to leave out so you can focus on the clarity of your message. I recommend you start by writing down your daily thoughts. They could be daily thoughts about your business life or about your personal life. Write down what those thoughts are, why they are important to you, where do they come from. Record your daily thoughts on a piece of paper or in a notebook using extensive vocabulary, using go-to phrases to find the most articulate way of communicating those thoughts. Or step it up by writing about a chapter you just read in a book. Use this as an exercise to see how you would explain to somebody about what you just read. Once you have identified your core message, you've taken the time to think before you speak, you have used extensive vocabulary, you've identified go-to phrases, and you've written down your thoughts clearly, then you need to think about how you are going to link your thoughts to your audience. Sounding articulate is one thing, but at the end of the day, you want your audience to get your message. You want them to understand your message. Otherwise, no matter how much effort and time you put into trying to sound articulate, if they don't get your message, then your message and your communication will fall flat. Like I mentioned before, the essence of communication is to impart knowledge, to share knowledge with somebody else, which implies a two-way communication. You must be able to send your message out in a way that can be understood, and the listener must be able to receive your message in a way they understand, which means they must be able to decode and decipher your message to get the core meaning from it. Sometimes you might think that you are being articulate and really clear in what you say, but if your listener doesn't get, if they don't understand your message, then the whole communication is going to fall flat. So how can you impart knowledge and communicate in a way that can be understood? Well, you need to link your message to your audience. Great speakers do this through stories, examples, and analogies that the listener and the audience can relate to. And the part that the audience can relate to is the key to making this communication strategy work. So think of a story that your audience would be familiar with. Use characters that they can relate to. Use vocabulary that they can understand when you explain your story. And check in with your audience throughout your communication to see if they're listening and to see if they're understanding what you're saying. I recommend that you build a database of stories that you can refer to and use whenever you need to. So far, we've talked about articulating your thoughts so you can communicate them clearly. But you also need to work on producing clear speech sounds. It will be a complete waste of time for you to work on articulating your thoughts if the other people you're speaking with can't understand the words that you use. So you need to work on both elements in unison. You need to work on both articulating your thoughts, but also producing clear speech sounds. So your overall message can be understood, and so you can be somebody who is truly articulate. There are 3 things you need to focus on. You need to focus on your pronunciation. You need to remove filler words, and you need to regulate your volume. For your pronunciation, the best tip I have for you is to focus on pronouncing the beginning and the end sound of each word. Don't eliminate or distort the beginning and the end sounds of each word. Otherwise, your words will mesh together and it will be more difficult for people to understand you. For filler words, eliminate like, you know. Replace these filler words with a pause. This is something that very articulate speakers do, and they do it really well. And regulate your volume so you can find the right volume for the people you're speaking with and also for the size of the room. Keep these things in mind and watch people's body language to detect if they can hear you easily or if they're straining to listen to what you're saying. When you have thoughts that are articulated in a clear way, and when you use speech sounds that are clear and distinct, you will become known as a leader who is articulate when you speak. I have many more videos on my channel about how to be more articulate and well-spoken. I recommend you start with this one up here about how to articulate complicated thoughts clearly, where I go into the read, write, speak formula that I use to become more articulate. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some valuable tips from this video. If you did, please hit the like button below. Subscribe to my channel for more content like this in the future, and I will see you next week in another video.